So we're able to retrieve the city name, but we also need to be able to get the weather. Now, the good thing is there is a service called openweathermap.org. It's free to use, but you have to sign up in order to get your API key, which you need in order to access their API. Then if you click on API, you can have a look at the documentation. We need the very first API here, current weather data. And here you'll find a documentation on how you're able to fetch weather data. We'll use this simple API call here where we can pass a city name and then we'll get back the weather for that city. Now, as I mentioned, in order to successfully send requests there, you need to sign up for free. And if you're signed up in your dashboard, you'll have this API keys part here where you see a key. Now it's blurred out here because it's my key, but you will just copy that key and later I'll come back to that and actually append this key to my API calls to be able to successfully get weather data. But back to the API, as I said, this will be the link we'll access. So back over on Plunker, it's time to set up this HTTP request to actually get weather data from there. So I am able to extract the city name, of course, from search city value. So I'll store this in a new variable called city name, the value I just logged to the console. And of course, I also want to, reach out to the web. So I'll set up a new HTTP request, a new XML HTTP request. And I'll store my API key later on here. Not inserting it now because I'll blur it out anyways, but you may already copy your API key into here, the one you saw in your OpenWeatherMap dashboard. Then I'll set up the URL which I want to access, and we can get this URL from the API docs. It's this URL here. However, very important, make sure to place HTTP in front of it. It's not inserted in the link you're able to grab here. And of course, city name here should go away. We'll leave the question mark q equals, but then I'll add something to that string with a plus sign here. I'll add the city name, which we actually extract up here. So the city name we extracted from our input. Now we can do something here. We can also check if city name length is greater or is, let's say, equal to 0, which means the user hasn't entered anything. In this case, we could return an alert. So we quit out of this function and alert, please enter a city name. So if we try this and if I now hit show weather, we get this alert. However, if I enter one single space, it would work, and that is certainly not what we want. So instead, I'll use the trim function here on city name dot trim. And now if I enter some white spaces, I still get the error because all those excess white spaces will be trimmed out. So that works, but as soon as I enter something else, I'm allowed to pass. So we set up the URL and the city name, and we make sure that the city name is actually set. And the last thing I want to set up is the method. And this will be a GET request because we want to get data, and we only can send a GET request to this route here anyways. With that, I can open the connection and I pass my method and URL to the HTTP request. And then I'll set up the event handler on ready state change to do something if the ready state changes of my HTTP request here. So then I want to execute this function, and in this function here I'll first change off if my ready state equals XML HTTP request done, and if the status is 200, of course with more than one equal sign here. And if this is the case, I know we got back an answer and it seemed to be successful, so we probably get back some weather data. I'll handle this case soon. Otherwise, if the ready state is done, but we didn't get 200 as a code. We know something went wrong. In this case, I'll also show an alert where I just say something went wrong. So that's the bad case, we had an error, and that's the good case. And before I add the HTTP send method here, I of course want to implement what I want to do if we get back some data. However, that is a bit more, not complicated, but I want to do something special here. Let's have a look at this in the next lecture.